everyone, and welcome back to TikTok Takeoff Small Business Summit. I'm really excited to be joined here today with Skip Chapman, founder and manager of Cafex Body, a unique line of coffee-based deodorants, who has seen massive success on TikTok Shop. Skip, welcome to TikTok. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited to talk to you. You know, I'm a big fan of coffee. I'm a big fan of smelling good. So, you know, bringing those two things together, I wanted to talk to you about your products. I wanted to talk to you about TikTok, your experience, and how things are going for you.
Great.
Before we dive in, why don't you start by giving us a bit of a background as to why you started the business, the types of products you sell, and a bit about the company.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So we started with, actually, a little background. I owned a gym for 18 years. And we got hit very hard by COVID. So during COVID, prior to COVID, we were fine. Right after COVID, the gym took a big hit. So we wanted to try to diversify, try to come up with another way to maybe just have a little side hustle. So I'd been making beard care products for many years, just for myself. And I'd actually been, it was more of a hobby where I was infusing coffee oil into my beard care products because it's great for your skin, it's great for the hair. And I had been reading how women's cosmetics used a lot of coffee oil to try and help make the skin healthier. So I was playing with that for a bunch of years. So then I said, you know, why don't I just try selling a little bit of my stuff online, right? Something that isn't a brick and mortar. Now, I knew nothing about e-com or anything like that. So we did that for a little while, and I had little to no success. Sold a couple, no big deal. Right around that time, we had a pretty serious health scare in our family, and even though we were gym owners and very health conscious, it changes the way you look at everything after you go through something like that. Not just looking at the food you eat, but looking at the things you put on your body and everything in your environment. So I have teenage triplet boys, all right? And if you've ever been in a car with 3 boys right after school, then you get a very visual feeling of what that smells like. And they're very clean boys. They're very great hygiene. They're wonderful. It's just, I think we all smelled that way at some point, right?
I've been there.
So I would tell them every day, I'd pick them up. I'm like, you gotta wear more deodorant. You have to wear more deodorant.
Right.
And then I realized what I was saying. I said, Jim, let me see your deodorant. I turned it around, I looked at it. I didn't recognize one thing on it other than the word aluminum. And I was totally freaked out. I'm like, they're putting this on 2-3 times a day. I've been making beard care products. Let's try and make a natural product. I'll take a shot at it. So I told my wife, and she said, well, make sure you put your coffee oil in it because that's kind of your thing. So I put coffee oil in it. I tried it, went to the gym, worked out next day. I noticed I didn't have any odor. So I didn't really think about it. Coached classes all day, did another workout, went home, and I realized there was no body odor. So I said to my wife, I'm like, this is crazy. I think it works. She tries it, same thing. Now the real test, I have my boys try it. 0 body odor, completely gone.
That's amazing.
So never, ever did I think about selling it. This was just for our family. We solved the problem. We were happy. We're like, great. So then we started talking about, we're like, maybe there's other people out there that have the same problem. So just coincidentally, right around that time, I had received an invitation to join the beta program for TikTok Shop. So I said, you know what, let's make a video. I'd been doing some things on TikTok for a little while for beard care. I think I had about 1,200 followers. Nothing major was happening, but I was posting pretty consistently, a few times a week. I made a video, which in my opinion was not a great video. It was, I came home and said to my wife, I was like, put a video up. It wasn't very good, but we'll see, you know, maybe it'll help some people out. That night we go home and suddenly TikTok Shop starts sending messages. You have a sale, you have a sale, you have a sale. Now this isn't stopping, it's going all night. So we're excited, then panic sets in because I'm like, I'm cooking this on a pot, in a pot, in my kitchen, and we have about 50 made. We have hundreds of orders right now coming through. So by the end of that night, we had 500,000 views. By the next day, we had 1 million views.
In 2 nights?
In 2 nights.
Right, okay.
And then that video went to 7.5 million views.
Right.
And even though it's a year old, it's still getting sales right now.
Right.
And from there, we realized, forget beard care. That was, you know, we were still making it, but this is what people wanted. The community had said, hey, look, you're helping us solve a problem. So we shifted everything and we made a business around the deodorant. And we leaned all in on TikTok. And a lot of people are, you know, you look at this and some people say, oh, you had 1 viral video. So I just kept creating content over what was happening. I just kept trying to scale the business, keep up with these orders. another video 1 million, another video 3 million, another video, and it just kept going. And we're like, well, this is fun. We'll ride it while we can. Well, it never stopped. And we just have continued to shape the business around basically this one video. Has completely changed everything, changed our lives. Then we started getting feedback from everyone saying, hey, this works. And then the biggest thing that happened for me, the most exciting thing, is I didn't know how it worked because the whole thing was a mistake. I was baffled. I'm like, why does this work?
Yeah.
And that's where we had the community. I first started with ER nurses, and they reached out and said, several nurses said, when we get a room and the odor's horrible,
Right.
we can't get the smell out, we put coffee grounds in there. And the coffee grounds will actually be the only thing that will get rid of the odor. They're like, we think you just made something here.
Damn.
And then it was law enforcement, police cruisers, can't get the smell out, put coffee grounds in it. So we realized we actually created something unique. And then
Very cool.
that's where I am now.
Wait, so where do you get your coffee ground? How does the coffee turn into the deodorant?
So we have to infuse the coffee ourselves, and we had to actually come up with our own way of doing this, because if you ever looked up coffee oil or coffee infused oil, it's anywhere from $35 to $50 an ounce.
Right.
I could never afford to put that in a product.
Right.
It's too expensive. And the reason it's expensive is because of its properties on skincare. So I figured from doing all these years of beard care products, I'd been infusing and playing with different methods. Nothing worked that I saw, so I made my own method. I can't tell you what the method is.
Yeah.
But I could tell you that it took 7 years to figure out a system to infuse coffee into oil.
Right.
So we infuse it into a organic MCT fractionated coconut oil.
Yeah.
Then that goes into the product. And then that is the active ingredient that gets rid of people's odor.
Damn.
I know.
Incredible.
Believe me, I don't believe it.
I've, we'll talk about TikTok in a moment, but I've seen videos asking if your product smells of coffee. Is it just the active properties of coffee, or is it the aroma of coffee?
It's
that
amazing.
helps?
There's no coffee scent in it whatsoever once it hits the product. So when it's infused, it will literally look like a black cup of coffee.
Okay.
But once it goes in the product, that goes away. So soon into this whole journey, we had the community say, we want a coffee scented. Why doesn't it smell like coffee?
Oh, right. They
And
expected the
They
smell.
expected it.
Right.
And I said, well, it's not going to do that. I'm going to have to change it and add fragrance to it. And they were like, we want to smell like coffee, which who wants their armpits to smell like coffee? Apparently, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
So we had to actually make that happen through fragrance oils to make it smell like coffee.
That's
but there's
amazing.
zero coffee scent. So we make an unscented version, and there's 0 scent, but does the same job. And then that way you're not dependent on fragrance to control body odor. Because if that's the case, we're a cologne, we're a perfume.
Right. And then all of the issues with wearing fragrances and everything else that come with that. So,
Yes.
yeah, such a great movement that you're part of that kind of
thank you.
natural. Tell me about like that first video that you posted. What do you think it had in it that made it so viral?
I had a question. It was just, during COVID, I spent a lot of time reading and just learning about marketing. So I dove deep into Russell Brunson's world of ClickFunnels. So, using a hook story offer is something that was ingrained in my head. So when I started creating content, I used a hook, which was just the question, have you ever been in a car with 3 teenage boys and the windows rolled up? Right away, that touched a lot of people. So many people are like, yes, me. And I didn't even need to go further. I could have ended it right there, and they would have said, we'll listen. Then if you have, then you know why I created my own, deodorant for my boys.
Yeah.
And then talking about chemicals and everything in it. So really, it was a pain point. It was a problem that so many people have, which I'm still amazed by. Yes. By 2024, we don't have that many resources to make a natural product that works for active people.
Right.
And so I'm no genius. That was a complete accident that I stumbled into it, but I was lucky enough that it worked for me, and it's worked for so many people now.
Got it. Yeah, it's very cool. I think a lot of that resonates with, businesses of all sizes, because they don't necessarily know how to get started on TikTok. And what we say is you just have to get started. Like, we hopefully try and reduce the barrier of creating content. We know that TikTok is a content-based selling platform.
Definitely.
The ecosystem is based on brands like yourself, like producing content, using creators or producing your content yourselves, and that then reaches the right audience, and that audience hopefully then is inspired by and buys your product. But to start making content is obviously such a big barrier for lots and lots of brands, especially smaller brands. So we just say get started. You never know what's going to pop. You don't know what's going to resonate.
Yes.
You don't know what's going to take off. So it's amazing that you managed to get that with your first video. If you hadn't of, like, tell me a little bit about the groove that you found yourself in with content. So, because you make a lot, you said a couple of times a week.
No, I make a couple times a day.
Okay.
Now,
Right.
back then, much less, but we put content up at least 2 to 3 times a day now.
Okay.
That's coupled with lives and other tools that we could talk about. But for me to find my voice, there's a couple things. First of all, I'm 53 now. I started when I was 52. To be on TikTok and making videos, that is not exactly what you would think of when you think of me in any shape or form.
Yeah.
So 2 things that made me feel really good. One is I told nobody I knew that I was on TikTok.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell my friends.
You want to keep it pure.
Yes, because you know what? There's a lot of freedom there.
Yeah.
And I could actually find my voice there.
Yeah,
And I heard
yeah.
one quote one time about when you first create content, don't worry if it's good or bad because no one's going to be watching anyway.
Right.
And that
Yeah,
was
good
my
one.
mantra in my head because
Yeah.
as I was growing my followers, I was, how many people are really watching?
Right.
And I kept
You want to
finding
get stage fright almost.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't want to worry. I didn't want that to be a limiting factor. So I just would find my voice. And my voice is more, I found a very educational voice because I was on a mission to educate about the harm, healthy products and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I'm a little sarcastic. I'm super positive. I don't do the negativity. There's enough negativity in the world. So that was no matter what I posted, it was going to kind of have that.
Yeah.
I don't really do a lot of trends. I'm not going to be dancing or singing.
Okay.
I might use trending music periodically, but really all of our stuff has really just been, how do I feel comfortable?
Yeah.
And does that mesh up with something else? But it's really finding your authentic voice. And you don't necessarily, you can be authentic, but not know exactly what performs. And that's why I love the platform, because I can look at the metrics, I can look at the analytics,
Yeah.
I can look at the comments, and I can get some clear definition of, like, what do you want to see from me? Would you like to see more education? Would you like to see more behind the scenes? And that shapes my content.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Because that I mean, you do have a kind of a theme, I guess. You do have or common themes that run through your content.
Definitely.
You bring your family in.
Sure.
You have a lot of behind the scenes packing content. I love how you live pack someone's order.
Yes.
It's pretty cool. I like
Yes.
that, and it actually, like, putting myself as that buyer, that purchaser. I'd love to see my product get packaged up. It's cool.
fun. I love doing it.
Yeah, and it's really no additional work on your behalf. It's just
No.
turning the camera on when you're doing your job, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing is none of this that we talked about costs money.
Yeah.
Like, it costs nothing for me to pack an order on a live.
Yeah,
It costs
yeah.
nothing for me to create content. But what it does do is it builds my community. So we don't view our community as buyers or customers. We view them as our community. And when we build the community, we build the brand. So we really listen to them. We want to engage with them. We want to have relationships with them if they want to have them, so that when they're buying from us, they know they're buying from us. They're not just buying from some company.
Yeah.
And we really care. We really listen. Every single product we develop, it usually starts with a poll. What would you guys like to see? Then we
Right.
give choices. So they love to have a voice, and they feel like they're part of my brand. So, I mean, because I knew nothing about what I was doing, I really recruited my community to teach me what they wanted. And that has been really one of the
cool.
biggest resources for me.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions, actually. As I think, the fact that you've started, even your product line has been super organic because you've
Yes.
been utilizing the community to help you
Always.
just
Yes.
decide where your journey and where your adventure is going to take you.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the questions I had, for you was, like, how do you leverage the community in that? I think a lot of people leverage the community based to inform the content they make, but you're using the community to inform the products you actually make.
Yes. Yeah, I prefer to give them a voice. So years ago, there was a company I watched when they were first starting out. It was very organic. They had a group and they were saying, we're developing this. What do you guys think? We're developing this. And I loved that feeling that we had a say in what was happening.
Right.
So when I got to this and I didn't really know e-com too well, I said, well, why can't we take that same kind of mentality and bring it to the community and say, what do you guys want to see? And I mean, it's actually gotten to be such a fun thing. So I'll give you a quick example. So recently, sandalwood, people wanted sandalwood, that scent, and people wanted coconut. So I said, let's do votes. So we kept voting. Well, that turned into a whole organic viral thing where we had the Coconut Crusaders and then this gamer named Timerian's Sandalwood Army, who pitted against each other, making content on their own, putting polls up. They would go on their own live gaming streams and say, you all need to vote for Sandalwood. It was
That's wild.
crazy.
Yeah.
And it turned into Sandalwood winning by 0.5%
Wow.
in the end. And the deal was, if he won, I would put his name on the label for 500. So like that, where can you do that?
Yeah.
Like where does that happen? Where the energy that came from the community, and it's right there.
Yeah.
Like that cost me nothing to do that. And
Yeah.
I think I know what to make. I am always wrong. So I default to the community. And as long as you have that first base product, you can do that. You can default to them and say, what should we do better? What do you want to see? Now they have a voice. Now they're buying in. Now you have something special.
And you've got loyalty there as well.
So
because
much loyalty.
They're not going to buy another deodorant
No,
as long as you're producing it.
Because they feel like they own part of this.
Yeah, that's true. That's
and
a
I
very good
love
part.
that.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
invested.
Yes, definitely.
How do you manage, a business and creating content and packaging orders and being a dad and all
Sure.
those things? Like, that's a lot.
It's a lot. I would love to say it's easy. It's not easy. It's a lot of time management. It's a lot about the people that we hire have to be really good at what they do. We hire based on personality first, and they're usually people we've known for years. And when we bring them in, I can really recruit them to help me, and I can depend on them so I can move to other things.
Right.
With that said, it's still a lot of work for a very small team. My teenage triplet boys are out there labeling. They're out there. You'll probably see them in videos. They're literally in the warehouse pouring deodorants and everything.
Right.
And they're there. My wife is the other day. We got cleaned out. We had a great week. Our lives were crazy. And I realized like we're way behind because we're doing all this other stuff. And it's like you said, I couldn't balance it all. So it was Saturday night. Typically it's a family night. And the whole family was out in the warehouse working. They came right out. They're pouring like all on their own. They're pouring, they're labeling, their hands are in it, and they're like, let's go. And that's the mentality. So like really, if I didn't have such a supportive family and if I didn't have such great employees, I would be in deep trouble because even with that said, I'm still, it's still a very long work day. But the way I balance it is I always prioritize what I need to get done. I need to create content. I need to engage with my community. I need to do customer service. Those things are kind of like have to happen.
Yeah.
Everything else I make time for or I outsource so that it all gets done.
Got it.
But it's a challenge.
I mean, it's great. You've got 3 boys to help you with. I mean, you've
Until they go away
created
to college next year, then I'm in trouble.
Yeah, no, you don't worry about that. Created an army of employees. That's brilliant. So, I mean, I think outsourcing and utilizing, resources available to you. I mean, what about creators? I mean, you know what TikTok's about.
Sure.
How do you use creators? How's that worked out for you?
So early on, we were lucky. We had a lot of success with creators immediately coming in. So we've grown over the past year. We have about 2,000 affiliates that are in the affiliate program within TikTok Shop, which I absolutely love because I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
So in some affiliate programs and other things, whether it's through a website or something else, you have to pay the affiliate or whatever for content they're creating. Through
Right.
TikTok Shop, this is all done. You pick what you're going to do, what's that percentage look like, and then it's just a nice, clean relationship.
Right.
Those content creators, my favorite ones, the ones that I really enjoy, are the ones that buy the product first,
Right.
love the product, and then are like, look, I need to create content for this. Because then it's a win for them, it's a win for me.
It's more authentic as well.
Oh,
isn't
it's
it?
so
like
authentic.
The output's better.
It's wonderful because they're speaking from the heart.
Yeah.
And those are the ones I look for. We've
Right.
become much more selective as our brand has become more of a voice, and we know exactly what we want to sound like, and we know exactly who we want to pair with. So we're very selective, but it's like having an army of people out there that are selling for you. And I'll get certain days where we'll have this big spike, and I'm like, I have no idea what happened. And then I look, and I'm like, oh, well, one of my affiliates had a great day, put out some amazing content.
Yeah.
And then that's where we reach out to that person and say, hey, look, love what you did. Can we do this or that? And then we try and just keep moving that forward, whether it's, through promoting those ads or something else like that.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And obviously live has been a big part of the way that you connect. Like live is a relatively new, I guess it's relatively new to kind of the West. I think, in Southeast Asia, it's hugely embedded into the way that they sell, especially on platforms as well. How did you get into live? Like, what does the live journey look like for you going forward as well?
It was a challenging journey because it was something I knew I needed to do. And early on, when we first started and the shop was new, our manager was like, look, you need to do lives. This is what's really going to help you do lives. So we did one early on, And I had myself so worked up. I was so nervous about it. And
Right.
it was different for me mentally than creating content. So I built it up to be something it wasn't. Did it, we had some sales, it was great. But then I just focused on my content and then
Right.
just moved that direction. So fairly recently, a couple of months ago, we sold the gym that we had owned for 18 years. And we did that so that we could focus more on this business because I was running 2 full-time businesses at the same time. It wasn't sustainable.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And so what happened was at that time I said, look, if we're going to do this I have to go all in. I have to do this live thing. And I had so much stress about it, which is so silly. And I'm sure so many people have the same problem, but you build it up to be something it's not. So finally I go in and I have my fulfillment team, they're there. And I said, we're going live. And I didn't even give them a warning. I'm like, we're going live. You guys are going to pack orders behind me. We're going to go live. Don't worry about it.
Did they
They're
freak out?
Oh, well, yeah, because I didn't have my makeup. I'm not dressed right. So
Right,
I said, no, we're doing it because if we think about it, we're going to not do it.
overthink it, yeah.
So we're just going to do it. So I did it and I doubled my sales in one day. And then next week I did it again. We tripled our sales.
Did you promote the live beforehand?
Not at all.
Okay.
I did it so wrong. I didn't even put up a warning I was going live.
Right.
Now, I've learned, now we go 4 lives a week, and we do 2 hours at least every single time.
Everyone's dressed up nicely. They know
No,
they're
not
going
at all.
live.
Not at all. I love the organic. You know what? I pride myself on this is I try to save a surprise for every time I go live. So
For the people in the live or
no,
for the
for
audience?
somebody that might be there with me. So
okay.
it could be anything. So the one day my wife was on the live with me and I told her about how I had an AI program try to create an image of me for TikTok Shop and all the weird things it did with my body and everything. And she's just listening to it. So we're having real conversations that she's never had before, but we
Right.
do it on the live while we're talking about the products and everything else.
Right.
So I try to keep it so they're real conversations,
Yeah.
they're real moments. And
Yeah.
I don't use a script. I don't plan things out other than maybe what our sales might be or our promotions during the live, but I like to keep it as organic as possible. So last week I introduced a large gong every time somebody had a sale, and I didn't tell one of our fulfillment team, Alice, in the back, so I just started ringing the gong.
Poor Alice.
Oh, poor Alice. Everybody says poor Alice. I think Alice is more popular than me by a lot. But I work her into the lives, and she's never really much on camera, but everybody
Right.
loves that. So
Yeah.
I just try and make it fun.
There's a humanity to it.
It's just,
Cool.
it's what I would do in my
Yeah.
office if nobody else was there.
Right.
It's literally my life normal,
Yeah.
but I'm going to talk to you about the product. I'm going to try and get you to stop using these other non-natural products, but I'm going to let you see what my life is really like.
Yeah, totally.
And that worked for me.
Yeah.
Because it didn't feel fake. It didn't feel like I was being something I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It was again, like I like to have fun. I like to laugh. I like to be positive, and anybody around me has to have a good sense of humor because we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And that's what we do in our lives for the most part, and it's been very successful, and it's a lot of fun. We have fun, and to see what the live's potential is, even when I'm fumbling through it, tripping over myself, some days
Yeah.
not even pinning products in the live and still
Right.
getting sales.
Right.
I'm like, I've not even scratched the surface on this. Why did it take me so long to do this? Why did I build it up to be something that it wasn't when it's just you being yourself and finding a comfort zone of how you want to present that to your community. And I have to tell you one other thing. The most exciting part about the live is every time I go on, over 70% of my viewers are non-followers.
Interesting.
Okay, over
Very cool.
70% consistently
Right.
every single time. So now, if I go live, I automatically
already
get
know.
introduced
Yeah.
to over 70% of an audience that I never got before. And
Right.
every time I go live, I'm picking up followers because I'm saying, hey, look, welcome to the family. Hit that follow
Yeah.
button right
Yeah.
away. And now I'm growing my community every time. So
Yeah, there's
it's just,
definitely a huge opportunity there. Well, it's that incrementality that you talk about. Like, you can constantly end up just marketing to your
Yes.
followers or your community, whereas you're representing a growth every single time.
And I
That's
love that.
Very cool.
And you know what? It's fun and it fires me
Yeah.
up. It's exhausting,
Yeah.
but it's almost like you're performing for 2 hours. But it is so rewarding, and I kick myself for not doing it earlier. But that's like every part of this journey, creating that first video. Why was that such a big deal? Like, just create that first video.
Do you think you'll shift your time or your focus towards live, or do you think you'll continue a blend between the short video and live?
I like the short video because I think it fills the gaps when you're not live.
Got it,
I want to be in your For You page. I want you to see what I'm doing. I want you to see the behind the scenes. I want you to see
Yeah.
the struggles. I want you to
Yeah.
see the wins. So I think it's, for me, I think they complement each other.
Yeah. And then they live on, I guess, people can explore
Definitely.
the videos and the story behind the
Definitely.
scenes. I think you're doing a lot to, I think, in this environment that we're in currently right now, sitting here, sharing how it is to run a business, like
Yes.
the realities of running a business. I love, like, it not only sounds like a lot of fun, but it sounds like something that anybody could do. Like, it
Yes.
sounds, I don't think everybody would do it, but like, I think it's very relatable the way that you're telling your story.
It's real life. We have a saying with our brand. A lot of people bootstrap their business. This is flip flopped. We had
Right.
nothing when we started. I had put on a credit card those 100 to 50 that I had made, and that's it. There
Yeah.
was no investor, and I hear this a lot from people when they want to get started. They're like, "Well, I don't have an investor. I don't have the capital." I said, I had less than any of that. You don't need all that. You need the will, you
Yeah.
need the positive mindset, and
Yeah.
you need to just go and do it. But none of that costs money. That's all free. So, we've had investors now approach us and want to buy in on our brand, which blows my mind. I'm making deodorant, but it's amazing. But that you don't need that to start. You
Yeah.
don't need any of that. You can literally just start by making that first video
Yeah.
and then looking into lives and everything else.
Yeah, and hopefully we're making it easier. I think one of the things that we're doing at TikTok is helping to kind of guide sellers along that journey to try and limit or break down the barriers. Hearing from you is obviously extremely inspiring, and helps us as well to think about, where do we need to go? What gaps do we need to fill? How do we need to engage with, brands like yourself and sellers like yourself? I guess if you had to kind of share what you would like to see from TikTok, or what you as a business and how TikTok is going to be playing a role going forward, what does the future look like for you? What kind of things are you into?
I love the tools that are already there, but I feel like the more tools, the better. The more we hear from people like myself, people, I want to hear from people that are doing similar, or I want to hear from people above me so I can pick their
Right.
brains.
Okay.
What are you doing? How are you getting to that next level? So for me in this business, it's always been, how do I get to the next step?
Yeah.
And that's been kind of our mantra all along. So the more we hear from real people that are in the trenches, that are finding success with things, and the more we can kind of pick their brains and see how they're doing these things,
Yeah.
those real-time, real-life advice kind of nuggets, I mean, they're gold to me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I love hearing the stories. But I love hearing, well, how did you do that?
Yeah.
What did you do? What did that take? How many pieces of content were you creating? What kind of hooks were you using? What kind of voice were you using? Was it, more comedian? Was it more educational? Like, that's all information. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, it's really the real people in the trenches I like to hear from.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's on your TikTok feed? What do you see?
Oh,
What's the themes?
wow. I see a lot of dogs.
I see a lot of dogs too.
I see a lot of dogs.
I think there's just a lot of dogs on TikTok.
There are still a lot of dogs, a lot of pets. You know what? I tend to focus on super positive things. So a lot of positive, feel good stories, because my vibe on my page is very positive. And when I look at things, if it kind of messes with my head, I don't want it renting space.
Yeah.
So it's usually feel good stories or success stories, or somebody that did something from nothing, or I love the donations and the charities, and it's just fires me up.
Yeah.
That's the cool stuff. And honestly, that stuff helps me shape my page, because I feel inspired by them. So when I'm looking at my feed, I really want to be inspired by what I'm looking at. I don't want things that are going to drag me down.
Yeah.
So it's almost like that conversation, hang out with people better than you so you can be better.
Totally.
Right? So that's kind of my feed, is I'm looking at sellers that are killing it. I'm
Right.
looking at, dog videos. I'm looking at success stories, and it just, I enjoy that, because then it puts me in a really good mindset, and I feel
Yeah.
like I speak better when I have that in my head.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it goes into your subconscious and wires you
Totally.
correctly. And
Yeah,
I feel like if I looked
absolutely.
at anything less, I'd get on all sad or mopey.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see that.
I know. I definitely read less news these days.
Yes.
And spend more time on TikTok.
Oh, definitely. And I love my feed because it's so cool. I'm like, oh yeah, all good stuff.
Yeah, totally. Well, listen, this has been great. I guess one final question I have for you is, you've experienced a lot. You haven't even been on TikTok that long. I think
No.
we just touched on.
No.
But what advice would you have? What would you round out? What have you taken away that you want to share with the rest of the community?
Yeah, I would say it can all be very intimidating. It can all be overwhelming, but it's really not. And it's when you take one step and I'm sure you've heard this a million times, you got to get started. But before you get started, you have to make a commitment. You have to just commit. What are you going to do? 2 pieces of content a week? 3? Make it realistic.
Right.
But start with a realistic goal. Don't say you're going to post 2 or 3 times a day for 7 days, because you're going to burn out in a couple of weeks. Start small, get used to the platform, find your voice, get comfortable in front of the camera. And if I can, my pet peeve, don't start recording and have a gap and then say hello. Like that 2 seconds, somebody's going to scroll. So what I've learned early on is that you have 1 second with millions of people producing high quality content that you're competing with for attention. So if you're not fast in that first 2 seconds, or if you don't have a hook, or if you don't have something to just get them to stop and listen to you, then you could have the best content in the world and it's just getting swiped past. So really look at the way you start your video. That's so key. And then look at what else you're putting out. And then just listen to it. Respond to people in the comments. Don't try to get customers. Try to make a community. Try to build the community. Ask questions instead of telling all the time. Ask questions to people. See what they say. That's how you get people to engage. But all that engagement, again, that happens with you just being really mindful of what you're saying, being your true self, and just constantly trying to evolve. Because like me, I mean, it was a horrible video I put out. I thought, not my best. I put out so many more that should have went viral. But that's what I don't know. You might think that a piece of content is horrible, and that could be the thing that totally, it could be the best thing. And it usually is. Almost everybody I've talked to today here has said, oh, it was like, I didn't even think this was going to perform.
You had no expectations or anticipations.
Nothing. So that just proves how much you just have to create. You have to get in, you have to start doing it. You can make a million excuses, or you can start today, and that needle will move if you're consistent and you're diligent.
It's a good, that's good lessons for life, I think.
Oh,
You've
please.
extended those out of TikTok.
You're not kidding.
We'll take over TikTok as well. Well, listen, Skip, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Thank you so much for spending time with us. No, it's been amazing.
Oh, it's great.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and I'll hand you back for the rest of the day.